Welcome to Self-Perfected.
I wasn't ready.
I'll just be blunt about this. Sometimes people will come into the self-perfected group and then they're trying to sell their freaking crypto thing. Usually we can block them before they even get in. But then sometimes people got like their timeshare thing or they got some Amway thing. And I'm just like, okay, that's cool that you're doing that right now. But come on now. When you see the word self-perfection, the next thing that comes into your mind is pitch my MLM. Really? Like, come on now, people. So, I don't know. I think just people
You're not
can't.
interested in
people can't read.
timeshares? Come on now, Mitch.
I only share my time with people with principles. Okay.
Woo! That was fire. I like that. Yeah, that was good. Well,
Okay. If you were a meme, which meme would you be? I would be that meme of that one guy who's like
like this.
Yeah. You know which one I'm talking about?
I do know which one you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
If I
Isn't
were
that
a
a
meme,
famous actor?
I
Yeah.
thought so, but I don't think
It's
it
not?
actually is.
Oh.
if I were a meme, I would be the SpongeBob meme where he's like this. You know, he's got his arms back and all the letters are like upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. You know, I'd be that meme.
No, I actually don't know which one.
You
The
don't know that one?
SpongeBob meme?
You don't know that SpongeBob meme? Where he's
Okay,
like,
if you're watching and you know the SpongeBob meme, drop it in the comments.
please.
Is
I
it
need
the
to
one where
know.
he's like getting up out of his chair?
I think so. Like he's making this. No, he's pretending to be a chicken. That's what he's doing. He's
I
pretending to
don't
be a
know that
chicken.
one either. I like the one, you know, where it's like
I see it. This is really
You
funny.
see it? Okay.
I have a
alright.
couple. The one
Yeah,
that
that's
with
the
the
one you would be.
you know with the black girl like this?
Yeah. that one.
That would be me, or the one with the little girl with like the house burning in the background. Like
Yeah.
That's totally you.
Yeah, I could see
That's
that.
you.
Well, hang on. Okay, there's the one meme where SpongeBob's looking extra freaking weird. Yeah, looking like a chicken.
Yeah,
Then there's the
that's-
one where SpongeBob's like excited and he's like, you know.
No. It's the one where he looks like a chicken. He's like,
Okay.
it's like it makes fun of people. I like.
Oh,
it.
nice. See, okay, what I've realized now is memes, people are sleeping on memes. You get a well-placed meme that speaks to people because nowadays, literacy rates are so low.
Oh, you know what else? You know what other meme I really like? The Bobby meme, the one where he's like from King of the Hill, where he's like he's
Oh,
got
yeah.
that sign in the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like those kids they'd be really offended if they could read.
Yeah.
I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Just
like it gets
exactly.
straight to the heart of it.
Yeah. Exactly for that reason. That's why I like that one. Right. I'm drinking from my Don't Mess with Texas mug because Cameron could not be here today. Because he's
Cameron's getting really into AI.
yeah, he's artificially inseminating his cow.
Yeah. Everyone nowadays is all like AI. That's the kind of AI that we've been focused on. Seriously, Jess is like got this very specific kind of cow she's working on getting. And the other day we thought we found one. It was intense. It felt like I never really watched those reality shows, but did you ever watch those reality shows back in the day of like Dog Bounty Hunter or where it's like kind of going on and it's like the day to day and then all of a sudden something happens and then like the music picks up. It's we gotta go. And then it's like
Right.
10:34 a.m. They're like getting in the car. It's like 10:45 a.m. and you like show up and then there's drama. It's like that's what my life has become.
Wow.
Okay?
trying to get a cow.
Just in general, being married to Jessica, it's very dramatic. And especially now that we're getting a cow. Okay. So the other day,
It's hilarious.
for anyone who thinks I'm kidding, I'm not kidding. Like,
But dramatic in the best way. Like it's more
yeah,
of
like
like
best for all
a
drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm chilling. I'm not chilling. I don't chill. Okay. I'm fucking extreme. And so I'm like
Wait,
typing
wait, wait,
away.
wait.
So-
I just want to clarify. Mitchell does not.
I'm projecting my drama onto my wife, okay? Obviously.
It's true. Mitchell does not chill. You could be at the Snyder household and Jess will be like over there cooking or something. And Mitch is like, bro, like he's already walked 10 miles on his little fucking treadmill.
Hey, I don't even need the treadmill in that springtime. You ever hear about this app? It's called like Ring. It looks like this.
No, I've never. No, what is it?
It's Move, it's the Move Ring. I don't know. It's just on my phone. Maybe they're trying to track me.
Okay.
But anyway, I was looking at it because it will start popping up and it goes, you've moved, or a brisk walk should help you hit your moving goal. I'm like, I didn't put a moving goal into this thing. What is this? And I started looking at it. So it tracks when you're walking, which is actually kind of cool. But then I started looking the past few days. I'm like, this is insane. The data it knows how many flights of stairs you climbed, how many steps you've taken. But then I looked at my past week. I'm walking on average like 6.5 miles a day. Like, this is insane.
I feel like that's low for you.
So anyway, okay. The other day, I'm doing my morning call with my team. You know, we're like mapping out what we're doing to build the business. I'm like sending some messages. At any given time, my inbox is going crazy. So if you send me messages and I don't respond, I'm working on it. Then I go downstairs because I'm hungry at this point. And Jessica's been making me some great breakfast and all that. I'm, hanging out with Aristotle, walking him around when Jess is making me some food. And all of a sudden, Jess goes, oh my God. She's like, there's a cow for us. Katie just called me. And I'm like, that's when then the music starts in the background. It's like, dun, 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 dun. And she's like, quick, we got to be able to put down a down payment for this thing. And then she's like showing me pictures of this cow named Misty, who's on some ranch in Texas, like 30 minutes from where the Copes live. And yeah, so my heart rate started rising, stress levels go up. I'm like, this is what I'm born to do.
Buy cows.
Basically flipping cows. You know how
Wrangle
people flip
cows.
You know how like Gary Vee goes to garage sales and flips stuff?
Yeah.
We do that on a whole nother level here.
Is that like all he does? Is it, he just flips garage sale stuff? That's how he became popular?
I
Is
don't
that-
know what
is that
Gary
his
Vee
thing?
does. I don't know, man. But
Okay, I'll tell you about something I've been doing. That's been a lot of fun. We talked about this on the TT support call. That's where we talked about it. About this point of just like writing, and obviously been writing for a few years now, like just doing my own personal DIP writing and all of that. But just this point of how enjoyable to an extent, how enjoyable it is to write. Like no one else can write for you. Like actually, let me clarify that. It's not just writing. How enjoyable it is to create, right? Because no one else can create for you. And it's so interesting. I've been reflecting on this point of how everyone else has, just everyone in general has been programmed and what's the word I'm looking for? Like domesticated, but not domesticated. I'm not trying to say domesticated. I'm thinking cows now. But basically like been given this habit, conditioned. That's a good word, conditioned. Everyone's been conditioned to just want to be stimulated, just be entertained, just have like, oh yeah, this is going on, that or this or whatever. And like, oh, give me this. I want you to make me this, do this for me, do that, right? And like, oh, then I get to enjoy it and I get to be entertained. But it's so enjoyable to create. And it's interesting because it's not always like necessarily in the process of creation. There are things that you do when you're creating that's like not necessarily what you want to be doing. you're building something, you're working hard, if it's like in the physical, or you're writing and you got to work that muscle to get to the point where you're free flowing with the writing, you know what you're doing. The same thing with like just anything, there are parts in there where it's like it's not turning out how you want it to turn out, or it is turning out how you want it to turn out, but you got to do some work to get it to that point, right? And then that part may not be as quote unquote enjoyable, but at the end, when you can look at what you've created, that is just amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I wanted to bring up that point because like that is I like what Jess said. Creating is actually like giving. That's awesome. Yeah. It's like that is actually what we're here to do. That's actually just a part of who we are. We're creators. And somehow we've been conditioned, right? But we've allowed ourselves to be conditioned as a society to just be consumers. We're not creating, we're not producing. And so that if that's a fundamental part of who you are and you're not even doing that, it's like what you've been duped, obviously. Right? Do you want to
Yes.
say something on that?
Well, yeah, because I think we can all relate to when you have that rush of creativity and the inspiration, and you're like, I'm gonna draw something, I'm gonna do this or whatever, and or you're like, I'm gonna write this, and there's those moments of inspiration where the stuff can come through. However, real creation, like creating something that's valuable and actually bringing it to the world, is actually about being systematic with it. Because we have this image that we've consumed from the creators in Hollywood and books and everything of you're like, I'm a writer, I'm gonna wear my fedora hat and puff on my tobacco pipe and wait for inspiration to strike, and oh yeah, now I wrote the next Hemingway poem or whatever. But it's like it's just so not really what it is. Because what I have seen now, I've created content. I mean, we've been doing this podcast for however long. It's episode 141. That's a lot of creation, but it's because it's a system. It's like systematically, we know every single Sunday or whenever we do these it's like that's when we're in the process of, it's like you have an outlet, and then we're all moving ourselves too every single week. So we're talking to new people, we're getting good insights. And here's one other thing too that I found is awesome, because I've been writing a lot more and I've given myself a challenge for this year. I don't know if I'll say it publicly, because so many times people say shit publicly because they want the dopamine hit, and then they don't do the fucking thing.
Right.
You're not like that, right, Mitch?
I mean, I use it strategically. I'm getting a cow, but that's because now it's going to hold me accountable, because I know one day I'm not going to want a cow until we get the cow, and then I'll be like, okay, we're hand milking that mofo. That's going to be, let's go. How was it? Oh, okay. But then if someone's like trying to be a creator, there's generally two camps that they come into. One is where they just consume a bunch of other shit that sounds good, and then they just regurgitate it. Mm-hmm. And that's like the people that are trying to teach something before they know something. Then there's the other.
Also, a lot of people will be a quote unquote creator in their minds, and I feel like that's the same camp, where it's just like they'll come up with all these great ideas and never actually put it into the physical. What's the other camp?
Yeah, well, the other camp is then when you have like your own original source material. So going out on the front lines, like you, Drake, you went to all these Rotary clubs. I mean, you're meeting extremely high level people. You're going to these new types of parties. You're bringing Christine with you, and you're like networking. In those moments, you're having real interaction with people. You're sharing the principles and how just the stuff that you're seeing. And that's creating a whole new breeding ground of really good material to then share with and talk about. Or like for myself, for example, every week we have some form of like a meetup locally here. And so we're talking to people and like really going deep. So it's not just this pre-programmed creative thing where it's really just a bunch of regurgitated bullshit. It's yes, you're dealing with that. It's like the Matrix, what people call it. But then you within yourself, real time, are able to decide what's best and then collaborate with people on that level. So now it's the whole thing, the created creator creation. We're taking all the created stuff, but then we realize we're creators. So now we're then creating creation. If someone doesn't have TT, good luck comprehending that.
Yeah. Just as a clarification there, it's like, because you mentioned like coming up with like original stuff, but you're not actually. Oh, look who's coming into the fucking chat. Look
Damn it.
Oh shit! I hope he's got a GoPro on his head, doing a POV. Hang on. Let's make sure he can hear this. Cameron, please tell me you have a GoPro strapped to your head, and you're making a video that says POV. You are AIing your cow.
Hey everybody, I'm coming to you live from the field. This field.
Oh, let's go.
Look, she's just standing there for you.
Look,
too.
this is
I'm in the field.
creation. This is creation right here. That's how you
Yeah,
create a baby.
I'm
Cameron's
not-
about to.
Just to be clear, I'm not doing anything to the cow.
Oh.
We put her over here at our neighbor's property to mate with a bull.
Oh.
And-
Oh.
and
Did the mating
property-
happen?
Their property is huge. It's like thousands of acres. And
She's got to find him.
I drove over here to come check on her, and literally she was at the front gate. But apparently she's been getting frisky, so I think she's just taking a break right now.
Okay.
This is Honey, our cow, by the way. If anybody wants to say hi.
That's hilarious.
What's up, honey?
So I thought, this whole time, I thought that you were, because you call it AI, I thought you were artificially inseminating her.
I am going to take a course on AI. I'm going to take a course on AI next week.
Okay. All right.
So,
you're
we
not-
will be doing that if this doesn't work.
Gotcha.
But I'll know how to do it for future cows and stuff.
I
But
thought you were sticking your arm in there up to your elbow and all that,
yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. But I came over to check on her to see if she needs to be milked. That's why I came over. So Katie's gonna come over and because I don't know how to milk. I mean, it's like a skill.
So why are you even over there?
Well, I just came to check and see if she needs it because she's with the kids.
Okay.
So, and I reported back, and then Katie said, "Well, she'll come over and just try to give it a shot to see if she needs it. That way, she doesn't get mastitis, which is like,
Hardening
it's inflammation of the mammary glands, I guess,
of the masses.
or her masts. So, hey, everybody.
Nice.
If I can, depending on how long this takes, I might get on in a little bit from the office. So I don't mean to interrupt y'all guys.
He's on the front lines.
I wouldn't have. Yeah, go ahead.
He's showing us the creation process. That's what we were talking about. We were
Right.
literally talking
Look
about
at this.
creating.
Look at
This
this
is
property,
great.
man. This is just the front.
Beautiful.
It's
That's
like
nice.
goes way back, way back. They own everything over here, even on the side, like all the way up to my property. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they have Technotutor.
Nice.
Cool family.
Let's go.
Okay, guys, I'll let you go. But I'll come back on if I can a little bit if y'all are not done already.
All right. See you. Thanks for
Okay,
making a
see ya.
special
This is Cameron live from the field reporting, and I'm out.
appearance. Bye. Woo.
Wow. Dang. Yeah.
That's
So-
pretty cool.
What were we saying after the original? Like, see, like that right there. That's like original source content. Like,
Okay, that's what I was saying though.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say though. Is that like, all right, there's not really anything original, right? Like, because some people will come up and they'll just be like, I'm gonna come up with my own original idea, whatever. I'm gonna do things, my way, this way, whatever it is. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just looking for something original. It's like, you don't need to do that actually. And
it's
I
not
know what you're
actually
saying.
possible.
Yeah, it's not possible because everything's already here. Everything's already been created, right? And so, but it's directing the things that are here in a way that's best. And I think it's important to make that distinction because we don't need quote unquote original ideas, right? What we need are people who are willing to direct things to what is best for all, people who are willing to consider all things and direct things that would be best. That I don't know any other way to say that really, other than like, okay, considering all things means, yes, considering yourself, obviously, but considering others, considering who's going to be impacted by your decisions, by your actions, the plants, the animals, the resources on this planet, how that's going to have an effect later on, even when you're not here. That is being able to consider all things. And that is all that's really required. You don't have to come up with quote unquote original ideas. Now, it may seem like an original idea because it's going against the norm or the system or something like that. Sure, but it doesn't have to, like, the emphasis isn't placed on originality. It's not placed on, it's like, okay, I'll give a great example. When before Christine and I got into a relationship, one of the things that, this was like after, so for those of you who don't know, which I don't know why you don't know this story, but I've said it so many times, but if you don't know, basically, I suggested to Christine, I proposed to her the idea of us being in a relationship. And at first she said no, wasn't interested in it. And then I went looking for someone else, right? Because I'm like, well, she said no, so I want to be in a relationship. Let me look for someone else who's going to be open to that. And I found other people, and some of them were just like really not best for a relationship. They weren't the kind of people who would be a good partner, a good mother. They weren't interested in the self-perfected principles at all, all these things, right? And having a conversation with Cameron and Katie, one of the things that they helped me to look at is, what am I prioritizing here? And what I was prioritizing was looks. Like I was prioritizing that she's got to be hot in this way or that way or whatever. And to me, there was like, well, obviously that's a given. She's going to have those things. And so that's what's most important. I'm not even going to look at other women who are like ugly, like this, or that are unattractive. Like that's, it's just not going to happen. Right. But if that's your primary focus, guess what's falling to the wayside? Everything else that actually matters, all the other things that actually matter. And so if your primary focus is to have an original thought, guess what falls to the wayside? What you don't focus on, what you don't prioritize, it's creating a world that's best. Because it's like, oh no, I got to have my original thought. And it's actually, you're focused on your ego, your self-interest. And so I just wanted to bring up that point because we're not talking specifically. Let me just rephrase what Mitch said. We're not talking about just regurgitating the system. That's it. We're not talking about regurgitating the current system or just saying what somebody else is saying or doing what somebody else is doing in order to just make money. That's stupid. There's no point in that. Like, why? All you're doing is you're actually perpetuating the system. You're continuing the system by doing that. Oh, but this already works in the system and all this. Like, there are elements, and I also want to be clear about this. We're not saying you have to be completely removed from the system and just go out and live in the forest or the woods or do things that are completely against the system and totality all the time. Like, no, it's like there are elements of things that work within the system, but it's the starting point that's different. And it's also really easy to delude yourself on the starting point and go, yeah. No, I'll help later. I'm just going to go into the system now, but I'll help later. And when I've got the money and I've got the networks or the connections, then I'll make a difference. Like, no,
wow. I had a conversation with someone literally this past week about that.
Really?
He's like in TT, but he's not like really like, he's not like he's not a distributor or anything. He's not like really pushing anything. And we were having a chat, and he's like, "Yeah, well, you know, I'm here to make the world better for everyone." I'm like, okay. And he's like, "But you'd agree you have to be rich in order to do that." Like, well, yeah, it's gonna take money to change the system, but like, where's the focus? And it's just so funny because you could tell he's buying into the AGI thing, because he's like working on some AI thing right now. It's like some sales AI fucking software thing that he's gonna end up automating himself out of a job anyway, but he can't see it yet. And he's like, it's just like, yeah, well, imagine when we have like AGI, it'd be like having 7 billion human brains all in one room. It could like instantly solve all these problems. I'm like, well, theoretically, yeah, if it was programmed by people who had principles, but right now it's just programmed by a bunch of paranoid people. So what do you think we're gonna create?
Well, it's funny too,
Yeah.
because I was thinking, it's the idea of I'll do this and then I'll do that, right? And it's funny because I was thinking like from a woman's perspective, because creation actually comes it's a very different type of creation for women than it is for men, because there's inherent things within us that, like, for example, like I'm growing a baby right now, like that's literally creating something,
You're growing
from
a what?
a baby.
Surprise.
that was
The fuck?
that was, anyways,
Like on the balcony or
but
something?
In one of those things like the Matrix.
yeah, the pods. I have one of those portable uteruses or wombs beside me.
Nice. You're so forward thinking, Christine. Wow. You don't have
So
to abuse
progressive.
your body.
Yeah.
Exactly, like technology. Anyways, but it's like a lot of women get caught up in this pattern, because I was there too, where it's like I gotta get my life together first before I start thinking about a family and thinking about all these other things that actually want to make my life progress forward. And then, but that thinking is so backward, because now you're seeing it. And I was getting to that point where it's like I was getting closer to 30, and I was like, okay, I still don't have my life in order the way that I would want it to, but then all these other things are being delayed. So if I don't start focusing on those things now, okay, like how old will I be if I, by the time I get married or like have kids and all this kind of stuff. And really, it wasn't until I came into this group that I realized, oh, I need to start focusing on the long-term things that I'm actually wanting, to also put all the other pieces in place that I want as well. But it's just interesting because we've kind of, especially for women, we've taken away these natural ways of just giving and creating. Like, for example, like a lot of the women in our group, it's like we're doing things in the kitchen and creating things from like baking bread. None of these things are like original ideas, but it's things where it's like, if I don't have the skill to actually do it, then I don't know actually how to create anything. You know what I mean? And then you think of like all these people that have recipes and that share blogs of like different things that you can make. It's like, why would people be doing that if it's like already been done before? You know what I mean? Like people are still constantly like trying to perfect like new ways of baking bread or like making the perfect pie or whatever, like literally whatever type of thing that you want to make. So it's just interesting, like how we've gotten so away from just the simplest like ways of creation, trying to like be these like consumers, but yet there's so much physically like here right in front of us that we're completely missing. And then for the guys, it's like a totally different aspect as well, where it's like actual giving versus a lot of the guys, I guess, get caught up in like receiving before giving. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I deserve before I give, versus like, oh, I need to give value to the world and then I'll receive 100-fold. So it's like everyone's all fucked up in the starting point of like, how do I get back without, maybe I guess like taking from myself first, but it's like it doesn't really work that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
It's this misunderstanding of just life in general. And like we've been saying, you've been programmed to be a consumer. And so because of that programming to be a consumer, the misunderstanding is really just like, we want everything handheld for you, or not handheld. That's not the right terminology.
I guess
there,
like instant gratification too.
instant gratification. That's it. It's like you want everything presented to you, done for you. Like, like there's whole businesses that are built on done for you marketing, done for you this, that, whatever. It's like, okay, but you're not learning to create for yourself when you're doing that, right? And so there's this point within that. And here's the thing. It's like it's nuanced. All this stuff is very nuanced. It's very much okay. A dolphin is considered a mammal, right? But if you've ever touched a dolphin before, if you've ever like seen a dolphin, it doesn't have hair, right? Mammals, part of the classification for a mammal is you have some sort of hair or fur or something like that, right? Dolphins don't have hair, except that they're born with a little mustache.
No, no,
Yes,
no, they're not.
yes,
There's no way.
yes, yeah.
Let me see.
You see, it's nuanced, right? It's nuanced.
Wow.
You guys are going looking at dolphins, but
Those dolphins are born with a mustache.
yeah, I'm bringing this up because it's like, people will say, well, this doesn't quite fit in that, and they'll have different understandings of things that are just really lacking the full context. And so
I cannot find a picture of this. I just see a bunch of pictures that are clearly photoshopped.
oh yeah,
His fucking mustaches.
yeah,
It says it falls off pretty quickly because of the
Yeah.
swimming.
it's like basically they're just born with like little hair follicles on their beak, and then it falls off. It's not a mustache like yours, Mitchell. But it's like, okay, when people think of entrepreneurship, right, or building a business, how many young guys right now want to be entrepreneurs? And they're like, yeah, or they call themselves entrepreneurs. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, I'm building a business and all this. And it's like, but really, their thought process on entrepreneurship is really just like this, like, yeah, I work 1 hour a day, something like that, and like,
It's like, let me do the bare minimum work so I can be a fucking parasite and live off
Right.
society.
they're not actually trying to solve any problems, create anything.
Well,
They just
it's sometimes though they can dupe themselves into being, no, I'm helping other people also be a parasite to live off society.
right.
But it's total system thinking in that the system's fine, good enough for some people. We won the lottery, so fuck anything else. No regard for human life.
So here's the thing that I see most people get trapped into, and that's they want to live like we're talking about, as far as not having to struggle for survival. They want to live that equal money system. That's what they want. But and so that's where their thought is they're thinking, well, I don't want to have to struggle for survival, and then I'll create for others. But they're not seeing the totality of everything and how everything is connected, and seeing that we need to create that for everyone. It's not just for you, because if your starting point is just me, and then later on I'll give back to everyone, what ends up happening is you're compromising yourself and compromising within the system many times over before you even get to that point, right? And so then you're not even creating actually what's best. And then by the time you get to, if you do make it to, hey, I've made a bunch of money, then you're like, yeah, but I mean, I figured it out. Other people will have to figure it out for themselves too. And you give up on actually doing anything worth anything at all for others or for this world. You've completely abdicated yourself, abdicated your responsibility to this world just to fulfill your own self-interest.
Yeah,
It's
and like
Aristotle.
I'm aware that people right now who are like grinding, building their thing, and they're doing digital marketing or whatever the hell, they're probably not even going to be listening to this podcast right now, or that this is not enough to then sway them from what they're doing. But two things. One is when that person comes crashing down because AI disrupts them, or shit hits the fan, or they get in some car accident because they realize they're going the wrong fucking way and life is going to wake them up, then you come back and re-listen to this episode. So you don't have the time loop. But then also it's like for the people who have really seen the common sense of what we're talking about in this group, and you've adopted the principles, or you're at least open to it and you're like, okay, this is cool. I like this. I want to be part of this. Realize that when you go into the world, there's still not everyone's going to hear this message. But what I've noticed is about 10 to 20% of people who are hunting for this. They're like, life is not what it's shaped up to be. I played by the rules and I was a good person, or they're like, whatever. They tried to do the system thing and they can see through it. And so those are really the people that we're talking to. So it just helps when you're out here, because this is a long haul game that we're playing. It's not just like oh, great, we automated a podcast and put on a webinar and now everyone gets self-perfection. It's like, no, you put the message out there and then it's a one-on-one support process over the next decades. But that's what it takes to actually change the system.
Yeah. It's really cool because it's sort of like a missile, a self-navigating missile, where we have the point locked in of where we're going, but always that self-navigating missile is correcting its steps. It's correcting, like it's overcorrecting just slightly and going past the point of the perfect aim, and then overcorrects again, and it keeps coming back and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter until it hits its mark, right? And it's like, that is the process of self-perfection. That is the process where it's like, now I've got to develop myself in this way. And then you go, maybe, feelings and emotions, not good. I shouldn't be following this, right? And then you go hard to the extreme of just like, no feelings, no emotions. And then you're like, wait a minute. Okay, all right, that's not what was meant here. And then you correct again, and you're like, okay, but you got to feel something. And then like you get better and better and better at it. And I gotta make a lot of money. And then you're like, okay, so I just go buy this business. Like, well, hang on, we're making money in the context of doing what is best. Oh, okay, so I got to do what's best. So fuck making money. Like, no, you got to do both. Come on. But there's this nuance to developing yourself in this way to actually create yourself to be what's best and create this world to be what's best. That's what we're talking about here. And that's why we're sharing this, because we're aware of this nuance, and also that the only thing that you really need, well, I don't want to say the only thing, but the main thing, the first thing that you really need is to develop yourself, develop your vocabulary, develop your understanding so that you can apply this actually. Because there's a lot of...
And the starting points of the principles.
Right.
Because the missile is a good analogy, because it's like whatever the starting point of that missile is, that's where it's going to go. Right.
That's where it's headed.
Right. But that's whether it's like a good starting point or a bad starting point. Right. So that's where like the principles is really important, because if you don't have that, and especially the first principle of doing what's best for all, it's like, then your course correction is going to be faulty along the entire way. Like you're not actually going to land anywhere productive.
It's funny because people will I saw this post on Facebook, and hi everyone, Jessica here. Just for the audio people who didn't see me come in. I saw this post on Facebook, and it was like, how do you make marriages work? Or what's your tips on relationship or marriages? Or I don't know, something along the lines of prompting people to give advice about marriage. And I saw that, and I can hear the echo of my voice. Mitchell's listening downstairs. I'm just going to shut the door quick. But I saw that, and I instantly was thinking about how, starting your relationship on principles is totally different from feelings. And I know we've talked about this before, but if you think about it in relation to what we've been talking about right now, you see the correlation between, if you base your relationship only on feelings, that means that the end game is feelings and emotions, like start to finish, right? If your starting point is based on feelings and emotions, that's what you're going to get out at the end. But what's crazy about the mind is, if you're at the same level of emotions and feelings that you started with, your mind is going to create a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, because you become what is the word I'm looking for? Where it no longer really affects you the same way. You don't get the same kind of hit from those emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a little more happiness or a little more anger, because then you can get the hit that you're looking for. And that's what escalates into the verbal fighting and potentially into the physical fighting. But also it's like, then your whole marriage is based on this like huge polarity. And by the time you get into your 30s, 40s, or whatever it is, where you're like 10, 15 years into your marriage, if it even has lasted that long, you both are totally repelling each other. You're like, what are we doing? This is insane. You make me feel absolutely just horrible. I do not like the way you make me feel. And people are like, you're just not the same as you used to be. And it's like, okay, you're right. You both based your relationship on feelings, telling each other, making an agreement. You made an agreement. It just wasn't based on principles or logic of any. It was solely based on an agreement of feelings and emotions. And yeah, it's escalated to this point where you barely recognize each other, because you've molded who you are around how you get the maximum amount of energy out of your relationship. And you're not actually in a relationship with them as a person. You're in a relationship with how they make you feel, which is totally giving away your power. That is the ultimate disempowerment that you could possibly have, because you are at cause for everyone around you. You have to get feelings from them in order to function. And that is the worst way to live life. And going back to what everyone talked about earlier,
you'd be at effect of everyone around you, right?
Yes, sorry, you'd be at effect from everyone around you. Going back to what you talked about earlier, that's the same thing with the creating.
Yeah.
In that, you're not actually creating anything real. You're just creating dependencies, and you're literally addicted. You're just addicted. That's the same thing as being entertained. You're just being entertained in a different way. And everyone in those situations typically are being entertained in many ways. And I put in the comments, it's like, if you're just out here to be entertained, whether it's by basing a relationship on emotions and feelings, or Netflix, or your whatever your cup of tea is with your entertainment, or multiple, right? Then you are not fulfilled. I mean, I go back to when I used to watch Netflix all day, and you feel like shit.
Yeah.
You get nauseous. You get done and you feel a little disoriented, because then you have to come back to reality and realize that you actually have things that you have to do in physical reality. And you're like, oh, that's not as fun. I just want to keep binging my show. Yeah. And you like literally, as you start doing the things that you're supposed to be doing in physical reality, guess what you're thinking about?
Your show.
Oh, I wonder if she's going to kill that guy. Oh, I wonder if they're going to get married. Oh, they should have said this. They should have done that. Why did they put that in there? Oh, the song they put in there was awesome. I'm going to go follow these characters on Instagram and blah, blah, blah. You literally immerse your life into other people's lives, and you create nothing with yours. It's literally insane. So those are some of the thoughts that I had while I was listening earlier.
That's really cool, because that just made me think, like, you literally become like an audience for these other characters or other people or whatever it is, right? And it's like, imagine you go to watch a play. Imagine you go to watch a play, and then like the characters on the stage stand off to the side and watch the play. And so you can see them on the stage, and you're like, you're supposed to be in the fucking play. What are you doing? And they're watching along with you. And they're like, oh man, this is so good. You know, she should have said this. He should have said that. You'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? You're in this play. Go fucking play. Do the acts, you know? But hey, did you see that clip that Cam had posted or sent to us of like, it was Heather and you know, the other guy, I forgot his name, Dark Horse though. You know,
Okay.
Brett
Yeah.
Weinstein?
Brett Weinstein.
Yes. Yeah.
So okay, they were reading a excerpt from this book, and it was so interesting because it was misdiagnosis of AIDS, right? And this woman in the book was talking about how she went to Africa. I don't know where. I think in Uganda actually. She went to Uganda, and she was saying how when she got there, this guy greeted her, obviously saw her, you know, she had light skin, and he was like, oh, obviously you're from this whatever organization, you're here to tell us about condom usage and all this. And she's like, actually, no, I came to ask you about AIDS. And he's like, oh, AIDS, yeah, terrible. And it's like, it affects us so terribly over here. And she's like, yeah, tell me about your experience with it. And it's like, both my brother and my sister or something like that died of AIDS. And she's like, oh wow. But what actually did he die of? Like how did it happen? He's like, oh, he died of AIDS. Like, what do you mean by that? Like what happened? Because usually you get AIDS and then you get sick and die, right? And he's like, oh well, actually he got malaria, and then we weren't able to treat the malaria, and then he died. And she's like, oh, so why did you say he died of AIDS? And like, well, that's what we say here. Like anytime somebody dies, they die of AIDS. I don't know. It's just the phrase that we use. And she found that really interesting. And what she discovered was that I think it was the UN gives them millions and millions and millions and millions every year of funding whenever there's somebody who dies of AIDS. And then all the other diseases combined, which there are tons of other diseases, but all of them combined amount to like a measly few thousand, right? That they get in funding. And so what they've learned to do in hospitals over there is just say, died of AIDS. Yeah, you died of this, but like died with AIDS, died of AIDS. Basically, because they're looking at the situation going, well, this person's already dead. We get more funding if we say they died of AIDS. And they just tell everybody, sorry, your baby died of AIDS. This person died of AIDS. Like that's just how they talk over there, because they're filling out all the paperwork. And so it's completely influenced that culture. And think of your perception of Africa. It's like, wasn't there this perception, and still today, where people are like, yeah, AIDS is like a thing over there. It's like, it's just terrible. Everybody dies of AIDS over there. It's like, actually, that's not really the case. They say everyone, and they document everyone dies of AIDS, but that's not actually the case. That's being heavily influenced because of the starting point there. And so it's in the same way. You may think, well, that's benign. That doesn't really, that's not going to hurt anybody, but it's actually making a huge difference in what gets treated over there, how they're perceived over there, what you think you're going to go over there and do. Like, oh, how many people are like, I'm going to go to Africa and build a school and help them and get them some hospitals and all this shit. It's like, they're not dying of the shit you think they're dying of over there, you know? So your whole starting point would be completely off because of this one starting point. And so I'm bringing that up because it's the same thing when it comes to developing yourself, living this life, just in general. People want to be entertained. They'll spend 99% of their focus on being entertained. And every once in a while, they'll have a little thought of like, I just wish this world was better. Oh, I wish those people were taken care of. But that is a fleeting thought. It's not something that they actually focus on. It's not something they're actually driven towards or have any purpose or actually living in their lives to make something happen. And that is what we're talking about on this podcast, in this group. It's like, okay, you can actually get all the things that you actually want, not the bullshit temptations and desires that the world tells you that you want, but the things that actually are fulfilling, like you're saying, Jess, right? The things that are actually fulfilling in your life, and create that for other people, actually make a difference at the same fucking time.
Yeah, it's
for other
crazy.
people.
It's crazy because people out there, if you try and point out like their faults or whatever, like trying to support them, like, hey, you're participating in this, they'll just be like, you're judging me. I feel judged. I can't even participate in this conversation anymore. I gotta go. You know, they can't even handle you pointing that out. And they're like, all the good things I did. Why don't you tell me about all the good things I did? What? It's like, you don't even care about the good things I did. And I'm like, okay.
Dude, that sounds like family members.
Yeah, seriously.
However much good you do doesn't make up for any of the bad you're participating, or the abuse, or the ugly, or, you know, whatever. Because guess what? You could be doing the best thing in the world, right? You could be doing and making the greatest impact. But if you're still participating in abuse, even in the most minute way, that's unacceptable. That's not okay. And you still have to fix that point of abuse. That all the good doesn't make up for that point of abuse, because you're still participating in that point of abuse. And I'm not saying that the good you're doing is invalidated and that you should stop that. And then I'm not grateful for that. I'm simply stating that if you're participating in abuse, you have to no longer accept and allow yourself to do that. And so for the general population, it's like, hey, good is not good enough. You know, people think good is good enough, but it's not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just not, because if we all just say good is good enough, you get where we are now.
You
And
can end
that's
up
just
anywhere.
it.
You can end up anywhere, because it's like, well, I mean, it's slightly better than this. It'd be like, that's why we're always talking about creating a world that's best, because it would be like, you know, you can have, I don't know, you could have $100,000 every day sent to your bank account if you'll just let Joe Biden sniff your kids. You know, like I guess technically that would, I don't know, maybe be better for some people, right? But it's like, is it best actually? Like, do you actually want this old man like, even if it's not Joe Biden, like, do you want anyone sniffing your kids or being weird around your kids? Like,
Okay, speaking of Joe Biden, have you seen these pictures being released recently of him when he was younger and his wife when they were younger, and then side by side with how they look now?
no, I've not looked at that.
It's weird. It's like, are you the same person? This doesn't
Probably
make
not.
sense. Like it literally, it like clearly doesn't make sense.
I shouldn't have brought him up.
There's pictures like that of Bill Gates too. But it's funny because like it just goes back to this consumerist point, because when you read the blogs, it's like really plainly laid out for you of how we participate, especially in energy. And you, by just like entertaining yourself, like what you were saying, Jess, of it doesn't matter like how much good you're doing in the world. You're actually most of the time just doing stuff just to feel positive. Unfortunately, though, it's like you're creating more negative because you're not actually fixing the real problem, right? The starting point is still off. So people get caught up in like, oh, feeling positive, and don't want to feel bad. And then we'll start justifying like why things need to remain the way that they are. And a lot of the times it'll get to the point of, well, I figured it out and I don't need to worry about it. Those people chose to be in that situation that they're in. So whatever I do, it doesn't really affect it, like, but they get to decide what they want to do with their lives. Meanwhile, it's like, no, but the reason why you're in the position that you're in is because we're all collectively participating in this system that's creating all the circumstances that we're in. So it's like when people say that, oh, there's no harm in watching porn, like it's better than cheating in my relationship or something like that. It's like there are so many other consequences to watching porn other than just like avoiding cheating in your relationship. It's like, first of all, it's like you're hijacking your dopamine like receptors. Like it's not even real. Second of all, like you're literally fantasizing in your mind like a completely false relationship or a false sense of reality. Third, it is like one of the biggest sex trafficking industries in the entire world. So it's like it's like you're just thinking so
You're also
short-sighted.
you're destroying your libido.
Yeah.
Long-term
Yeah,
effects of
100%.
that is you like, especially in men, like you stop producing testosterone. Like you're totally abusing your body and your body gets super fucking confused. Like it's a false reality you're creating, but your body's still releasing those hormones. And so if you just continuously always engaging in that, then it's like when people are doing cocaine or something and they just have to up their dose, and then it doesn't have the same effect anymore. And it's like, okay, well, you've watched all the most extreme porn out there and now your libido is shot and you can't even get it up for your wife. What the fuck are you going to do with your life now? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I like how Aristotle's like looking at the camera like, yeah. but look at that point of like consumerism versus creation, right? It's like you can just consume porn, right? Where you are literally, it's just for your consumption. You're not creating anything. You're not giving to anyone. You're not creating a relationship. You're not developing anything. You're not creating a child. You're not, you know what I mean? And so it's interesting because just that point, even in itself, is abusing yourself, your potential relationships, because let's face it, you're not having a real relationship if you're engaging in that sort of stuff, right? But also, what else is happening is that you are you're participating in this system that feeds off of abuse of others, literally just for money. That's all people do it for, is for money and survival, obviously, right? But that's, again, the money point. And it's like, okay, you could go around trying to justify certain aspects of it, but these people get paid and they're doing this, and it's better than them not being paid. It's better than them, just being, subjected into this sort of thing. But it's like, but ultimately, is it best? Does it even make sense? And at the end of the day, the answer is obvious. No. See you, Jess. Bye. And here's this other point. Is like, okay, at the end of the day, everything that we're talking about, it's nuanced, but it's not something that's like complicated. It's not something that's hard to learn. It's literally, you just apply yourself. If you use your Technotutor, you read the blogs, you do the DIP, right? You do those things and you plug into the group, obviously, right? Then you'll come to the same understanding because it's obvious. It's actually really obvious, right? And, I saw there was a question about like developing skills or building a business, right? And so the question was, what's your take on starting a business versus learning a skill on your own time that may eventually flourish into one, regardless if you use that skill for business or self-enrichment and knowledge? you have a solid intent, even with just the skills you enrich your knowledge with. And I would say this to that. Developing a skill is cool, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. Because you can have a job and develop a skill. And that's cool, right? But if your starting point is, it's obviously your starting point is going to matter here. But if your starting point is, I'm just going to develop skills and then we'll see what it turns into, that's not a good starting point to start out with. It's the same thing as like, I'll see where the wind takes me. You're not directing yourself. You're here on this planet. You have the capability of directing yourself. It's, I was going to say it's what you're supposed to be doing, but let me say it a different way because people might react to that. It's part of your purpose. It's part of who you are, is to direct this world, right? And so if you just start out with, well, we'll see what these skills develop into. If you're an adult, you're past that stage. Like that's a stage for a child. We'll see what these skills develop into. But even then, even still, there's intent there. You're doing it with the purpose of, I am going to make the most effective human being. If you're the parent, you're giving them skills. And yeah, there's a certain extent to where you're like, we'll see what this develops into. We'll see what they take on. But you're doing it with the purpose of, and if you're in this group, the purpose is to create a world that's best. I'm developing a human being that is going to understand these principles, understand what their role is, their purpose is in this life, and take that on effectively, not just in their mind, not just think about it, not just, oh, kumbaya, oh, they feel good about it, but they actually can see it, they understand it, they know their purpose, and they're doing the best and most effective things towards that, right? That is the intent there to developing their skills. So when it comes to building a skill or a business, first of all, if you're not building a business, and not just any business, building this business, as in there's a way that you can support other people to develop themselves and understand this purpose, their purpose in this life at the same time, and make money. You've built a business, you're developing skills, all of that. If you're not doing that, it's really irrelevant, anything else. It really is.
Just to make that abundantly clear, because like behind that question is just that there's lacking the understanding of the principles. Because if you're just looking to learn a skill, like Drake, you've been saying, that it's irrelevant. Like the skill has to be put to an ultimate purpose. But let's just paint a picture so it's really, really obvious what we're saying. Okay, imagine someone comes to you and they're like, yeah, well, what should I do with my life? And there's two ways forward. One is you say, well, just, go learn this skill, go learn how to do graphic design, go learn how to edit videos or whatever. And now that person for the next 5 years learns that skill. Now they're a great video editor. Awesome. Now let's say you tell the other person, okay, for the next 5 years, you're going to learn how to build a business. You're going to learn how to add real value, create a client base, support them, help their family. And by business, we're saying specifically build a business with an education. And now that kid is, now the person has clients where the kids are learning and the community's learning and they're getting better and they're taking more responsibility and they face the pressure and all that. Which one's going to develop into an effective human, especially in 5 years when AI is at a whole new level, automations at a whole new level. They've introduced universal basic income. Now we have an election in 2024 where you don't even know if you're watching a real video of the people being elected. And then the effect that has on society and how crazy people are going to go. And someone's going, well, I'm just going to be a video editor. It's
here's the assumption there. Here's the assumption with the oh, just go learn graphic design. It's like, what's the point? Like, you're assuming that everything is fine in the world. That's what you're assuming. Everything is fine. Everything's going to work itself out. that is a, that would be like you go into someone's house and the smoke alarm is going off as you walk into the door, and there's clearly a black plume of smoke coming from the kitchen. You look, you see the stove is on fucking fire, and they're just sitting there painting. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? And they're like, I'm developing a skill. Like, the house is going to burn down. And they're like, it'll work itself out. Like, no, it's not. You have to direct that. Oh, but there are other people here and they'll do something about it. Like, no, you have to, no one's taking responsibility. Can't you see? Aren't you, like, isn't it obvious? Like, nobody has a clue what's going on. You have to do something about it. Man, like, okay. It's, as far as how do you live the word live or life? I'll get to that in a second. It's as far as other people taking responsibility. Man, the only reason why you want to do that, the only reason why you say, oh, somebody else will take care of it, is because you're afraid that you can't take the responsibility for it. That's it. That's it. Dude, we were talking about that movie 300, right?
Mhm.
And just that scene with the hunchback, right? He's like, Leonidas, the king, is like, lift your shield. And he's like, ah. And like it goes up like maybe an inch. He's like, it's like, and you know, the Spartan army, the way that we operate is with a phalanx, right? Phalanx, how do you pronounce that, right? And that means that your shield is not just to protect you, it's to protect the person to your left and behind you, right? And so if you can't lift your shield, it's not hurting you, it's hurting your teammate here, right? And it's funny because you can easily make the argument like, oh man, he scorned that guy, that poor guy, he was a hunchback, you know, and he's like not able to lift his shield. That's not fair to him. He couldn't help that, right? You can make that argument. But one, it's like, first off, he was offered another task, clearing dead bodies from the field or the injured from the field. He was offered that task and he thought that was beneath him, right? He's like, no. Or maybe he thought that others would perceive that as a job beneath them, right? It's inferior to them. So no, I'm not going to do it, right? Look who's back. But ultimately, right? He thinks like, that is beneath him, or he feels scorned because of it, and he's like, not going to do it. Okay, cool. So he walks off. He doesn't do that. But literally, you have the opportunity to step up to the task that you can do. And again, this is a movie. So within your mind, if you want somebody else to do it, you're not taking the responsibility. It's like you're holding yourself within the limitation, because you can always develop yourself more. You can always educate yourself more. You can always bring yourself up. If you don't like the responsibilities that you're given, like for instance, this guy was given the responsibility to drag the dead bodies off of the field. If you don't like those responsibilities, well, guess what? You can develop yourself, your capabilities, like your own education level, so that you can take on different responsibilities, right? But if you're just like gonna react to, that's beneath me, I don't want to do these responsibilities, or it's like, first off, you're not seeing the equality of how everything needs to be done. And second off, you're allowing yourself to stop. Well, first off, you're allowing yourself to exist within separation and within an inferiority, superiority, all of that. So
you're fucking yourself over there. And you're also not seeing how you can take the responsibility for yourself to develop yourself so that you can effectively operate within the responsibilities that you see you do want to be participating in, right? Like you've lost sight of the goal. If you're like not willing to participate in certain responsibilities, you've lost sight of the goal of what you actually want to create. So I'm thinking specifically, this guy, he wants to support the Spartan army, right? But he's like, he can't participate as a soldier in the phalanx, killing other people. And so he's supposed to drag dead bodies, from the field or whatever, and drag the injured off as well. He doesn't want to participate as that. He's like, fuck that. Right?
So the real question is then, did he actually want to support the army? Or
He
did
didn't.
he just want to be fucking special?
Exactly. He wanted to be special. He wanted to support his own ego, his own I can finally be a soldier. It's like, that's just self-interest. You've lost sight of what actually matters. It's not to be a fucking soldier, just to be a soldier. That's the problem with so many ways of thinking, so many things that are espoused today. It's like this whole idea of, be an entrepreneur, be this, be that. Like, it's all this like, oh, I'm going to be, be a woman. It's all this like building up of your ego, of your identity, of yourself, which exists within separation from everything else. And then again, the amount that you actually think about anyone else is so fucking insignificant. It's so very little throughout your day or, throughout your life, that you don't even do anything towards that. You've completely lost sight of that. And you call yourself fucking a good person, and you call yourself like special or whatever the fuck it is that you like, oh no, I'm good. I actually care about others. Like, but you don't even do anything towards that. It's just an idea that you have in your mind of this, like you've created in your mind this image of yourself. And it's like, yeah. And you live so much in your mind that you think that that's who you actually are, but you aren't. You're a hunchback who just wants to be special. And I'm saying that because look, it's a metaphor, obviously. You're not actually a hunchback, but you're participating. There goes Camp. You're participating as a hunchback in your mind. And I'm saying that to potentially trigger you so that you can go, oh, I can change that. Because you don't have to exist as that permanently. If that upsets you, like me calling you a hunchback upsets you, like you are holding on to, it is you participating in holding on to, I'm a hunchback and I can't change it. And I'm this, like, just fucking change it, which is really simple to do. Meaning in your mental identity of yourself, ableist.
Is that when you like Abel Cruz, right?
Yeah. Is he listening? Right?
I'm an ableist.
I'm an ableist. I love Abel. Yeah, he comes to my clubhouses every once in a while. But if you are identifying as that, you need to change that because you're crippling yourself. I'm not crippling you. You're crippling yourself. If that hurt you, you're crippling yourself. Let go of that point, forgive it, transcend it, and then come participate as equals with us. Maybe you can join the fucking army, in that context. Hey, Cam, welcome back.
There's a huge other part to this. When you were saying that, it just reminded me. So it was inspired when Keith shared this on one of the calls on Friday. And he was talking about how in architecture, that when you're building a skyscraper, like 40% of the work at least is invisible because it's underground. It's in building that foundation.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this morning. I went on a walk. I've been going on like a longer walk in the morning just to clear my mind and just like, just as part of my process. And I see more and more now how it's like, if you're looking to just build a little Drake,
I'm just trolling Mitch.
Drake.
I'm just trolling Mitch. His 8-mile walk in the mornings.
8-mile sprint. Okay, so like if you're building just a little shed, all you need is a little, 6-inch foundation or 12-inch foundation or whatever. And so it's going to look very different how you approach that compared to building the world's tallest building or whatever. And what I think, I know this, so many people miss this. And also people haven't yet adopted this for themselves. I mean, I'm just looking at it in my own life, and I go pretty hardcore with the process every day. And I'm seeing how there's so many different things that I'm learning and so much. And it's not like I'm overcomplicating it. It's just there's a lot of different skills and things I have to learn, like developing myself as a leader, influence, being good at talking to people, all that stuff, being a good father, being a good husband. And I see that giving myself that space and time to do the self-forgiveness and walk and just like let my mind be clear, that allows me to then direct myself and support the direction of the various communities that I'm part of to then build that foundation really clearly. Now, what most people miss is that they look and they see, well, why isn't this way bigger? Why isn't self-perfected already the world's tallest building and TechnoTutor? And if this stuff is if it was really best for all, why isn't it the best tall building right now? And I mean, there's reasons for that, but the main one is just we live in space-time reality, and more people are becoming aware of this, that we're all having to build this foundation together. And
but also even the point of someone saying, why isn't it such and such if it's so good? That is an example of why it takes more time than you would think, because that's the level of reasoning people have. Instead of going, what does it matter? Like, imagine if like you were at the meeting with Steve Jobs talking about the iPod, and they were like, well, if it's so good, how come everyone doesn't have it already? And it's like, we're launching it. It's the beginning. Like, it takes time, and that's a technology where it happened very quickly and everyone adopted it. But what about some technology like the computer? Imagine the people who were like, when computers were already built and they already worked, and they were like, this is going to be the future. And people were like, if there was a future, why wouldn't everybody have it? Imagine if they had that logic, instead of going like, well, look at where it's at, look at who understands it, look at who's applying it. And then it takes time to put that into people's awareness so that they see like, oh, I can do that. The average person today that uses a computer, imagine that person's life in the 1950s. So imagine a person like the average normal, just not even middle class person who has a fucking supercomputer in their pocket. But in the 1950s, they would have been like, oh, how could I ever, like, imagine that was like punch cards and like computers the size of like a fucking building. How could I ever use a computer? And it's like, now they're like on a fucking supercomputer.
It's funny that you say that, because one, when computers were being introduced to the public, people were like, this is not going to be an everyday household thing. Nobody was adopting it. It was only like hardcore hobbyists of computers that were adopting it at first. And then it's like spread through the business world. And then slowly it got to, the everyday person. But then the other point is that point of like, what's that guy's name? Ben Goertzel. Goertzel. You know who I'm talking about?
Wetzel. Ben Pretzel.
Yeah, Ben the Pretzel.
And Wetzel Pretzel.
The guy who looks like he's got no life left in him.
The guy who's like stoned out of his mind, but he's just like, he's so ahead in the future.
The singularity guy?
Yeah, the singularity.
Oh, he's talking about the singularity?
Yeah. The singularity is like, let me just explain it to you really slowly, but like, he's actually super intelligent.
He was the guy working on that Sophia robot.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, super intelligent guy. His presentation is so funny, the way he presents it, so funny. But anyway, he was talking about how the average person today, if the electricity went out for more than 2 days, would freak out. They would not know what to do. They would not be able to handle themselves. It's not like, in the 50s where you went out camping and you stayed out there for weeks, because you could handle yourself. You could deal with the physical around you. You knew how to create a fire or chop wood or whatever the case was,
back
Well,
then.
dude, I was in Houston whenever like it froze and everyone was like, didn't know what to do. It was like chaos, and like people were just sat and like waited for things to come back on. But like out here, when that happens, where I live now in a rural area, everyone's like, well, I got my backup generator, I got my stove, I got, like we have a fireplace, so we can do that. I have gasoline, like, you don't, it definitely has an impact, because I mean, it's like anything that's disrupting your normal routine is disruptive, but it's not like oh shit, we're like everything's shut down. It's like, because we're not that dependent upon it we're still very dependent upon the system. But I'm just saying, you see the difference in terms of dependency when people become super dependent and don't understand, they can't handle it when something changes.
And so look at that, like how we went from like people were very slow to adopt computers to like now they can't fucking live without them.
Dude, AI is the same way.
Yeah.
If you actually go back and study the history of AI development, it goes back to at least the 50s, and you look at the development, you study it, it's like, oh, and then they had, I'm not going to go into all of it, but it's a very slow progression. It's very similar to the progression of the development of the computer and the acceptance of that. And then when you look at when things are like on that big of a scale, it's really, I guess my whole point in bringing it up was just like, when someone has that objection, it's like, you're not really self-honestly looking at the point. You're just giving yourself an excuse, and you're just saying, I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to stand up, but then your life is just going to be fucked. And then what happens when you die? You haven't really looked at that, and then if you think about it, most of the compromise that everybody has in their life is because of their fear of death. So you're going to compromise based on that fear, but then you're literally creating the reality that when you die, you don't exist, you're worthless, you're nothing, because you didn't establish yourself. So why not spend the time you have here going like, okay, if I was fully alive and I was guaranteed eternal life, how would I act? I wouldn't be like, well, let me just develop a few skills so I can, market myself, and like survive. You wouldn't think like that at all,
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like missing the plot.
Oh, hey, by the way, I wanted to share something with you guys. I was trying to find it the other day, but I was on my phone. It's really hard to navigate Rumble on my phone. But I want to play this for you. Can you let me share my audio?
I can.
You said something earlier that made me think about this. It was that point about triggering, because you were like, oh, if I say that this way, it's probably going to trigger you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But check this out. It's from an Owen Benjamin podcast, but he played a clip. So I'm just going to play the part right before. So he might be talking for a second before he plays the clip. So he's playing some clip of some guy who's like a speaker or something.
React that way. Okay, so listen to this guy. This guy crushes.
You'll hear it.
Emotion lasts about 90 seconds. You see this with children. Everybody has children, right? The waves are wild. Just ride them, baby. Right? 1 minute they're crying, 1 minute they're laughing. It's a wild time. But if you notice, if you leave a child alone, what do? They usually deal with it themselves, assuming there isn't something else going on. So emotions come and go in waves, right? And you can see that. If you get stuck in a particular emotion, assuming there isn't a biochemical thing going on, I'm not a fucking doctor, I don't play on the internet. As long as there's not a biochemical thing going on, the reason is because you have a underlying belief system or repeating pattern of thought that is not coming to the surface, that is reinforcing a story that is keeping you stuck. That is the lack of awareness, which is why, what is it that I believe about this situation? My favorite way to provoke that, offend the mind, reveal the heart. If I want to get somebody to really explain what's pissing them off, I'll offend their mind. Now, when I mean offend, I don't mean, hey, fucking asshole. That's not what I mean.
No, I mean
say
that.
something that challenges what they believe to be true. And then it all comes out. So
offend the mind.
Okay. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That point. Because people think sometimes selling just means like you're just positive and you're just trying to tell the person how great something is. But there will be a pattern that they're stuck in. And so like we've seen this a lot with what we do, all of you, we've seen this where it's like you're trying to explain the logic of it, but there's something that the person is just looping within. And it's kind of like going back to everything you guys, because I was listening in the car on the way here of just like, yeah, but and I do want to make a difference, but first I got to do this or something. It's like this like thing that's looping. And so sometimes you have to kind of piss them off of like, look, you're not going to make a fucking difference with that, or you're not going to be successful with that. And you're not even lying about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so like you're saying some guy working on like AGI or some AI stuff, right? You're not going to be successful with that. Microsoft is spending $10 billion on it. You're not going to fucking compete. It's like, well, I'm making the sales thing. Whatever you think you have, all they're going to do, they're going to outcompete you. It's like,
Yeah.
and even if you are successful, what did you successfully do? Did you make a difference, or did you make it so less people have jobs? Did you fuck everybody over harder just so you can get rich, thinking, but when I'm rich, then I'll do something? But you helped contribute to the problem. You made it worse. You didn't change yourself over a long, arduous process according to principles. All you did was focus on exploiting the system to make money. That's it. So by the time you get to the point of, now I got all this money, now what am I going to do? You're going to find out, oh, I got to walk a fucking 7 to 14 year process now. It's not like suddenly because you have the money, you can make the difference. Right. Yes, it requires money, but you also have to walk the process. And if you spent the whole time just playing the game in the system and not developing the other part, the principles as a point of automation within you, which is very challenging, you will fall, because your money will be tied up in all kinds of assets and things that affect other people. And the moment you try to change something, what's going to happen? They're going to say, yeah, they say, no, you don't do that. And then you're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, master. Yep. And you're not going to be surrounded by a group that you supported to develop to be like, no, it's cool. We all have resources and so forth. Let's work together. Let's build our own things and we'll show people that's better and so forth. You won't have that because you didn't build that. You just, I mean, how do you get the funding for the AI program you're developing and all this stuff? You got to get it from somewhere, and then they will have some say in it. So it's just the person in a loop. And so sometimes kind of like doing that offend the mind thing can get them for a moment to snap out of it. It just depends, obviously. But
and they're also participating with a bunch of other people who are also operating out of fear. So the moment they see that you are threatening their empire, their money, their whatever, their security, it's like, whoa, fuck that guy. And it's not even like a personal thing. It's like, cut him off. Like he is no. He's talking about like giving shit away. Fuck that. No, he's getting us in trouble. He's talking about standing up to trans shit or whatever it is at that moment, right? It's like, oh, nope, he's done. Cut him off. Sorry, man, you just went too far. You know, that's what it becomes. And then you're fucked over. And on top of that, you're not facing your mind.
Imagine like you find out, oh my God, dude, guys, there's this huge demand for railway train cars right now. It's insane. Like, and I know how to make railway train cars. It's really fucking cool. Like, I can make so much money right now. And you're like, hey, by the way, those railway train cars are being used to transport Jews to the Holocaust. And you're like, oh, well, okay. Once I get rich from making all these railway train cars, then what I'll do is I'll use that money and then I'll like stop people from doing Holocausts. I'll stop that kind of stuff. And it's like, you're contributing to, you're making it happen. Right. And oh, did I offend someone's mind right now? Did I make you feel like, oh, that's crazy? Like you're saying I'm like that. I mean, literally, that's actually happening right now. Like how many animals are being abused, children being abused, you know? And then I saw, oh my God, dude, I saw this thing on Facebook. It's like, you know, like when you're going through people's stories and then it goes to like an ad.
Yeah.
Didn't ask for it. And it was like this, I don't know how old, 13, 14-year-old girl, I think it was a girl, with like some severe skin disorder. It was like scaly, like their skin was like almost like falling off. It was like bad. It wasn't like just like a thing. It was like they had some fucking severe debilitating disease, right? And they were like in some third world country, you know, that's what it looked like, right? And it was just them talking and being like, please donate money, you know, to help me with my condition and so forth. And like the name of the ad, whatever, like the company that was running it or whatever it was like Jesus Saves, something like that. It was something like that. And it was some organization where it was like you donate to them and then they, you know, are going to help these people or whatever. And I'm like, it's all about Jesus. What? So you can utilize Jesus to be like, we need to donate money to help these people. So there is some level at which Jesus expects us to help people. just don't do it in a way where it changes the system. Because the moment you push the person to that point of like, oh, we have to change the whole system, they'll be like, oh, no, we can't do that. Only Jesus and God and so forth. And it's like, but you're still using Jesus as a way of getting donations to help in a certain way, but not too much.
It's like that Tim Pool thing where they were like asking about, hey, in Texas now in schools, they're going to put the 10 Commandments on the walls everywhere. Like, should kids be learning this stuff? And it's like, so the first commandment is you should not have any other gods before me. Right? It's like so
that was so funny. Ian Crossland like arguing that point. That was hilarious.
Ian was pretty funny on that.
He was like, well, you're worshiping a guy that's a human, but it says don't have any gods that are human or objects or anything like that. And the girl was like, well, hold on, I'm Catholic, hypostatic union, so it's three God, it's God, Holy Spirit, man. He was fully man. Hold on, wait, he was fully man but also fully God, so it wasn't like there's a separation. So you're not worshiping a human, you're worshiping God, but he's fully a human, but he's human and fully God. So it's like hypostatic union. I'm a Catholic, I know it. And you're like, so he is a human. Yes. So you're worshiping a human. No, I'm worshiping God. He's a God. He's a fully human. He's human and God. Right. But he's both equally, but it's God. So you're worshiping God. So you're not worshiping the human part. You're worshiping all of it. It's all one thing, but it's three different things. Oh yeah, there's a ghost. Don't worry about that part. And then they were just like, this is like a whole nother podcast. Like, let's just leave it at that, and it was like, I mean, the guy had a fucking good point. Like, okay, and that's just what the Catholic says.
Right. Okay,
so they're trying to go onto all these hypostatic union, like it's some freaking force field that divides the human. It doesn't let the human and the God cross into each other, but they're still there fully. And it's like, okay, and so you can't really explain any of that properly without just saying the words. Right. You don't really like, how does it actually physically work? Well, you can't know that. You can't understand any of that. So why does it need to be in school?
Right.
Like, exactly. If you're going to have this thing that you can't even explain the first part of it, because it says, don't have any false idols, don't worship any gods, things like that, except God. Which God? Does it include Jesus? What about Jews? What about Muslims? What about Buddhists? Does it include that? And then there's one that says, thou shalt not kill.
Right.
Okay. But all right. So let's see here. Department of Education, government, the state government, they work with the federal government. The federal government has militaries kill people. Is that okay in the Bible? In the which one is it? It's like I don't know which commandment it is.
Sixth commandment, I think.
Something like that. It's not that important.
It's not that important.
It's not as important as not worshiping false idols, which we can't even get past that one.
Right. It's like, and then which God are we talking about? Like, you should not have any gods before me.
See, you know what? They didn't have any of this trans stuff in schools back when we had the commandments in the schools.
That's right.
Back when we were on our slow decline into like illiteracy.
That's right. So we just got to bring the commandments back into schools, and then we'll solve that problem.
But I was thinking,
what's that?
It's like that would solve that in their mind. Maybe it solves the school shooter issue, because they're like, look, if you put everywhere thou shalt not kill in the schools, I mean, hello.
Then what happens when the school shooter comes in though? Can you kill the school shooter?
Shit.
Well, okay, first of all, the school wait, hold on. Wait, I want to share this because I was talking with a parent. She has her kid in school, and she was literally telling me, because I was challenging her a little bit on like what do you actually learn in school that's practical or whatever. And she's like, I had to tell my kid the other day that when the fire alarm goes off, he is the last one in the line. And I was like, okay. And she's like, because it's known that when a school shooter comes in, they tend to pull the fire alarm to get all the kids to come out. I'm like, holy fuck. You're telling and her kids.
But what if it's an actual fire?
Right. And she's telling her kid he's elementary.
What if it's not a school shooter, but an arsonist?
Oh my god. So these kids every single day now going into school is even more trauma.
So she's like, okay, she's actually concerned that there is a school shooter that may come in.
So it's such a realistic possibility in her mind that she's teaching her kid that you need to be last out.
And she's put an insert into his backpack
to make it bulletproof. I'm like, why the fuck would you even put your kid in school? If you think this seriously about it, why are you putting your kid in school in the first place?
Okay.
They gotta learn algebra, okay? It's that important. They've got
Okay.
to memorize algebra to be able to forget it a year later.
Really? You do not know algebra.
It's worth getting shot.
Okay, remember
But-
this may have been one of the episodes that we got banned for, so I'll just say the word really
no,
fast.
you can say it.
It's
It's
wrong,
fine.
David.
We're off of YouTube already. Who
Oh,
cares?
perfect. Okay. Remember when we were talking about mass formation psychosis? Yeah. So I was talking to my chiropractor the other day. He's like, "Oh, you'll love it." He's always got some shit for me when I come in. He's like, "Oh, you know that mass formation thing?" He's like, "Yeah, there's a book written by the guy, but he's like, you can just watch one of his talks where he explains this." And he explains how, I mean, really what the mass formation is it's mass hypnosis. And because I mean, hypnosis is fucking strong. Like people can literally be hypnotized and then have open heart surgery and not feel the pain. So that's how strong it can be. And that would explain why that lady sends her kid to fucking school. She's literally hypnotized by her consciousness to just not fucking.
What did she say though, Jake? Like, did you keep pushing the point, or did she say any? Did she give you any insight as to why, or was it couldn't get there with her?
No, she was like, definitely wants to homeschool her kid. Like she was just like,
Oh.
I don't know how to do that right now. She's single mother, all that stuff. And so
All
she's
right,
like,
look at that for a moment, the single mother point. And then people are like, "Oh, but single moms, that they're so great and brave, and it's great, and it's like you're empowering and all this stuff." That you see the problem now. They have to put their kids in schools. It's like, because obviously they have to go make money. Wouldn't it make more sense to have another parent in the situation to be the one that goes and makes the money?
right.
And wouldn't it, and like, if we're all about women's empowerment and how women are so amazing and great, aren't they going to be better caregivers than men?
But Cam, what you're not understanding is like this relationship obviously just didn't work out. The guy was an asshole or whatever, So like,
Or I don't want to be just seen as a mom. Like that can't be my only role and how I define myself.
Dude, you know what? I just realized when you said that, because I think, Drake, I think you made a post on Facebook about self-image is like your prison or something like that.
prison
Didn't you
warden.
make?
Yeah.
That's all it is, a self-image. When a woman says like, "I don't want to be a slave," it's actually just a self-image issue. Really think about it. It's self-image, because you actually don't care about being a slave. You just don't want people to perceive you that way, because you'll go be a slave just like a man is at a job. It's still a slave. Like you're just, "Oh, well, I'm getting paid, so it's not slavery." That doesn't make it not slavery.
Right.
Like that doesn't make it not slavery, because you're owned.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're told what to do. You're just doing it for someone else's benefit for basically nothing. That's still slavery. That's not like are you free? I mean, they're not free. It's not like you have any real freedom. Why would you want to go to fucking work all day when you could? I mean, if you have kids, it's like, man, people don't consider what their responsibility is to something. And so they argue about not being a slave, but it's like we've been impulsed with this idea of responsibility is slavery.
You remember?
You know what I mean? But then we
Yeah.
overlook a lot of the points where we're still doing that. What were you gonna say?
You remember that episode of South Park where Cartman is like going to different colleges and he's talking to either the president of the college or whomever like runs the basketball team,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Yes, so I'd like to trade my slaves because we don't pay them. I'd like to offer you a trade. How do we get more slaves?" Like, he's like basically like saying it out loud, and they're like, "They're not slaves." He's like, "Oh, excuse me, yes, the players, the students." But he's got like this whole Southern accent and everything. And
So
like,
he's doing like the what's that movie, Django or whatever?
yeah, exactly.
It's like doing that thing.
He's like doing that. it made me think of this. It's like, okay, it's almost like when you're talking to people today, you're talking to them about like understanding this concept. Most people don't understand. We live in slavery. If you have to go to a job in order to survive, a job, especially a job that you hate, even if you don't hate your fucking job, if you have to go to a job just to survive, you can't just do whatever you want to do with your life, and you're not the one directing it. You are in slavery, right? And when we talk about that, it's funny because it's like some people get it and they're like, yeah, I can see that, you know, but most people are not going to get it. They're going to be like, no. And so
well, hold on. So you'll think like, oh no, but I am in control because I'm choosing a job to go to. I went to school. I chose to do that. I could get a better job. But then when there's like a big market crash that affects you, you start to see like, oh, I'm a slave to this entire system. Like it's a whole system that's designed to always keep everybody slightly unstable and never totally certain. It's not just you individually are a slave to that job. It's the whole picture. Like, I mean, look at, for example, when the banks start collapsing and that affects this industry, that affects that, then it affects this. And then like now the housing prices are going this way and that. Like, why isn't any of that actually just based on common sense?
Yeah.
Why is a house one day worth a whole bunch and then the next day it can be worth nothing? It's the same fucking house. It's the same piece of land.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's the demand. And a lot of times, okay, but what's creating that demand? Why is suddenly everybody wants to go there or doesn't want to go there? It doesn't make any sense. And then why is there suddenly demand over here or there? Can be driven by an economic collapse, right? Where people are driven out of a particular industry. So like now, like where I used to live in Houston, there's like oil and gas, medical. There's probably a few others that it's like really big industries there, right? So if anything happens in those two industries, there would be either an influx there or an exodus there. You know, so then the people who already lived there maybe couldn't afford to buy a house because of the bunch of people coming from out of the state or out of the city to come live there for the certain job opportunities or something that they're educated for or whatever. So there's all these, but again, those things are all determined by other people playing games with money, trying to make money from money, while you're just going to a job trying to make money. And some people literally, they just make money from putting money on things and money that they just borrowed, that they were just given because somebody trusted them and they had a certain vocabulary. And then you want to argue like you're not a slave.
Yeah, that derivatives market is fucking insane because it's literally just like, okay, I'm going to make money on the idea that this thing is going to make money. And so I'm going to sell that idea to you. It's like, it gets so far into the separation. It's really cool when you read Heaven's Journey to Life, because it talks about separating and then separating that and then separating that. And like, you can continue separating infinitely, it seems, right? But like people will go into more and more and more and more separation versus, which is what we're seeing.
That's how we get to the whole point of like the mother has to put her kid in school, because
Right.
It's like we went from men and women, like women are not free because they're in the home and they're slaves. And then it was like, okay, yeah, I'll buy that, even though it's dishonest. And
Right.
then it was, oh, and now, you know, you can't really learn everything you need to learn at home because you're not qualified. You know, it's like, so you get all these lies compounded to the point where no one even sees all of those points anymore. You just see, I mean, I can't not put my kid in school. Like, what are you talking about? I'm a single mom. Like I have da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, that's all the consequences of all those little separation points that were allowed over time, where it accumulated to that consequence.
Exactly that. Where it's just to the point where why we have trans. It's like a separation of like men and women are not equal. Oh, okay, I'll accept that. And it's like, and then if you're this, you're less equal. And then like everyone's looking and pointing the finger at like, well, I want to be able to do that. And why do I have to do this? And it's like, there's this point of what I was talking about earlier with the hunchback of like, you see that as inferior to you because of your image, your self-image, like this task that you have to do or whatever is that needs to get done is inferior to you. And people, I don't know if, you know, people white people say this, but definitely minority communities, well, Blacks and Hispanics definitely say this, where it's like, I would never do something that is beneath me. Yeah, like that is an inferior thing.
White people
to
don't have to
do.
say that. That's the issue. Yeah.
Oh, see,
They just get everybody else. They just get everybody else to do it.
Ah, you fuckers. Right. It's like, but then it's like, you're not actually doing what's required. Right. There's that phrase that successful people are too busy doing what other people aren't willing to do. Right. It's like,
Still
that-
thinking about, isn't it?
But then
Well,
there's all
there's
these
a
like
couple.
Instagram
Yeah.
models who are like, you know, these gorgeous women or whatever, like flaunting all of their body on Instagram. Meanwhile, they're getting flown over to like Dubai and having like Arab dudes do all kinds of nasty things with them, you know, for like 100 grand over the weekend or whatever.
right.
And then they
don't
get
show
their
you
money
all that.
taken away. Yeah. And then they
Hey,
get
but
their
I
money
ain't no
taken-
slave, at least with a kid in a family and like making dinner and all this bullshit, you know, and it's like really our idea of, man, if you really think about it, it's like so much of the problems that we have, that we're distracted by all of these self-image points. So we don't look at taking responsibility for how the system functions, which creates all of the conflict in our lives. Not all of it, but most of it.
Well, there's like a key moment when you hear something as like an example of, let's say, the woman who gets flown to Dubai to do all that crazy shit. And it's like a moment where someone will hear that and then they'll slip and then they'll go, that's just too much. It's just too much. And then they like abdicate the responsibility. And if you can really pinpoint it and you can find, it's like everyone's got an edge. It seems like everyone has an edge to which they're willing to take the responsibility. And then there's some stuff that's just outside it. It's just too far gone. Whether it be, how do we change, the programming in society? How do we change the money system? How do we, look at ourselves or influence others? And that I find is a very interesting thing, because really you are life. We're all life deep down, but we haven't identified as life. I identify as life. Okay. And that is, it's like, that's the moment that people miss. It's like, it reminds me of this EQOF interview I was listening to a while ago. I think I brought it up on a podcast, but where in the past we would all cycle and we wouldn't even accept the idea that, oh, you are me in another life.
Mm.
It was like, that is too much. That's not, that was the edge.
Mm.
And now it seems like this time around we're going, okay, well, shit, you are me in another life, but I don't know how to influence that. And do I really have to figure that? It's still an abdication of responsibility, but it's on each of us to then say, okay, well, what am I going to do about that? Am I just going to go along with it and go, oh, fuck it, we'll figure it out at some point, or
It's-
just
yeah.
change it?
Yeah. And it's as simple as just making sure children use TechnoTutor.
Yeah.
At this stage, like if you want to break it down to the most simple, easy to conceive and to do point, like, yes, there's a lot more to it than that. But at the very least, if that's what you focused on, that would have a profound impact. Because like, I know for myself and other people have had an influence, for example, on you and Jess, or on Drake and Christine, where it's like, now you have a kid that's using TechnoTutor. And it's not only because of my action, but that was part of me pushing myself to do that. It supported that to happen. And then you're making that possible for other people as well. And so even you guys having kids and then using TechnoTutor with them and showing that as an example will support. And so then those children won't have those same excuses. And so even if you're like, well, I can't do all this, it's like, but you could do that at least. And then as you do that, you'll start to learn like, oh, I can actually do a lot more than I realized.
Yeah.
And here's a part that I know we all see, but I know not everyone sees it, is when they hear something like, oh, just get more kids to use TechnoTutor. Some people will go, yeah, but I got to go make all this money first, or I got to go do this or whatever first, and then I can do that. When in reality, what we've all proven is you can just make your money doing that. And
Of course,
you're
yeah.
gonna have to let go of the self-image of, well, then I need to be this influencer, I need to do this or run this or whatever. It's like, no, you can just become really fucking good at talking to people, building community, and then one-on-one supporting people. Whether you want to call it a consultant or educator, it doesn't really matter. It's just, are you actually getting the job done of get the tool into the home and support them to use it
Think
effectively?
about this. Are you doing what you think everyone else should do? Because if so, then if you're trying to be some kind of influencer, should everybody be an influencer? Like
I
if
think I
everyone's an
would say,
influencer, who's
yeah.
listening? Like, okay, so everybody can be at the level of Gary, whatever his name is, Gary V. Like if everybody is Gary V, then who the fuck's listening to you or anybody else? It doesn't make sense. So yes, you can utilize those points while they're here and while they make sense. But if that's the way you think, it's as long as I do that, it's really just self-interest. It's really just trying to cover it up because you're not looking at the starting point of why you're doing it. Because a lot of things you can do that can be effective if your starting point is clear as to why you're doing it.
I like what Austin and Giselle said. They said, yes, we are influencers. We have one follower. And then it showed their baby.
Their baby, yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Right.
Right. But everybody would rather influence people they don't know than the people that they do know. And that's a really cool point
Yeah.
that they're making.
It's interesting because like people just want recognition from other people. And it's because you didn't receive it as a child. And it's like,
Wow.
hey,
That used to be like an argument that I would have with my ex-girlfriend.
What was it?
People just want recognition from other people because they didn't get it as a child.
That's what I remember as a kid. And then as I grew up, and this before I had TT and everything, I remember that would be like a constant like bickering thing. I'd be like, it seems like you don't understand me. Like I'd be saying all this stuff and then she'd be like, yeah, and then she'd say her thing. And I'm like, and I remember just getting pissed about that. It was like a deeper point of seeming like, yeah, I was not being recognized and the words I was using were not being recognized. Now it makes sense because all my words were all fucked up. Hence why kids need techno tutor.
Yeah.
Because that could all been prevented.
But also this point of like, you're looking for recognition outside of yourself. And the reason why you're doing that is because you weren't supported effectively as a child. And you can change that by actually doing that for your children, by actually supporting them in the way that you wish you were supported and the way that would have been best for you to have been supported. You can do that for your children. And unfortunately, you have to develop yourself in order to do that effectively, because otherwise what you'll do is just this like reaction to the way that you were supported. And it's like I was saying earlier, there's a nuance to it. And so if you just go hard the other direction, it's like you're man, what are all those pirate movies? And they're like hardily, hard to the other side because there's a fucking rock coming, it's like hard to the other side. It's like, okay, yeah, but you actually need a compass point or a guiding point, which is the principles, which is the purpose of what we're doing here, creating a world that's best for all. You actually need that so that you're not just constantly going hard to this side, hard back to the other side, back and forth, where everybody's going to be thrown off the fucking ship. Like you're not going to get to anywhere productive at all.
And people are so bad at seeing how much time it takes to build something real. And so when you say something like, it matters how you raise your kids, it's like people are so stuck in survival. Some people are so stuck in survival.
Dude, for a lot of people, it's what Jess was bringing up is like, it's good enough. Yeah, this is good enough. Like, oh, my kids are better off than those kids over there. It's like, okay, but don't you want the best for your fucking kids? It's good enough. Like, what the fuck?
Because we were having a conversation with someone that was kind of reacting to this point of, well, techno-tutor is not like the only way. It's not the only way to heal, right? That's the verbiage that they're using, right? And it's just funny because they work with other modalities, you could say. And she was just like basically saying that, well, some people, you just kind of have to meet them where they're at. And, and sometimes, they just have really poor self-worth or whatever. And it was funny because it's like, okay, but asking her like, okay, well, where does all that come from? Like, why would they be at that point where they wouldn't be, I don't know, receptive to techno tutor? That's what you're saying. It's like, well, because they've just had like bad experiences. And it's like, okay, well, where did those come from? Like, and it's funny because it's like, it's almost people can't make the connection that it's because you had a fucked up childhood. That's who shaped who you are. So if we actually fix that problem, then no one will get to the point of, oh, like I'm a person that just needs to work on themselves and I have to try this thing and that thing. And it's like, for how many years has there been like ayahuasca and all these fucking things? And if they actually worked, why are so many people fucked up? Like if it was really that easy, why are so many people still searching? Right. And that's why with techno tutor, it's like so fundamental. It's like, okay, well, if we can get as many people to start it as early as possible, then and then people who actually get it and who apply it effectively, like then the chances of that happening is like less and less. But it's like people are missing this point. And I'm like, at the same time, all these modalities have been around for thousands of years, some of them. And what has changed? Fundamentally, absolutely nothing.
Those people are not actually interested in changing anything. So what they're really saying is, because they're saying, oh, it's not the only way. And it'd be like, okay, here's an example. Let's say the only way to generally be healthy is to eat effectively, nutritiously, and to get enough physical exercise that your body can move itself, and it's which supports with digestion and all that stuff. So just general point: eat healthful, eat effectively, and make sure you have enough exercise for your body. Okay. Well, that's not the only way, because some people, they just want to, eat what they feel like eating, and they want to just like watch a lot of TV.
Well, it's not
so it's not the only way. It's not the only way to do that. And you're like, well, but those people don't want to do what I'm saying. Those people don't want to. They don't want to have that result. They don't want to heal.
Yeah.
You also don't want them to heal. You just want to play in the victim pity party and have your bullshit and not get to that point of self-honesty, because you're saying, well, it's not, techno tutor is not the only way. It is the only way. So there's another way of healing, which is not addressing every word within you, your resistances, the energetic associations, which is making you think certain ways and behave certain ways, and then clearing those points up and reestablishing your relationship with yourself and with other people in a way that's best for all. There's another way other than that. It's like what you're really saying is you just don't know how, either you're saying you don't actually want them to change because you just want to remain a victim in them as well, or you just don't know how to talk to them in a way, mostly because, like we were talking about earlier, you don't want to offend their mind.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't want to offend them because then they're going to feel judged and all this stuff. But sometimes that is necessary, because if you
using
don't do
the words, you know what I mean? Like using the words.
You just don't know how to communicate, or they don't know how to communicate about the point. So it's not that it's not the answer for them. It's just, and not everyone's going to do it. We understand that. Just because it's the only way doesn't mean everyone's going to do it.
Yeah.
Just because something is best doesn't mean everyone's going to do it. Some people are going to make excuses. Some people are going to just remain purely in their self-interest and not challenge it within themselves at all, or to any large degree. That doesn't invalidate the point of what we're saying. There has to be a only way, because think about it. Techno tutor is the only point that says everybody learns the same way. That's the point of equality, because that if that's not the case, then equality is not possible. Because how is everybody going to get on the same page?
Because you have to learn as a human.
How is everybody going to get on the same page?
Yeah.
And every child, unless there's a physical deformity type situation, learns to walk, don't they?
Yep.
And was the parent an expert at teaching them to walk?
No.
They weren't. In most cases, the parents didn't teach them anything about walking. It kind of happens and you're like, whoa, look, they're walking. This is crazy. That should tell you something. It's not an instinct, but it should tell you something about how children absorb information and patterns from around them. In the same sense of, okay, did you teach your child your accent?
No.
But a child who grows up in Chicago will have a Chicago type accent, most likely. Yeah. I say most likely because it depends on the people they're around, obviously, but assuming they're around those people. If you grow up in the South, you're probably going to have a Southern accent.
If you grow up in the UK, you're going to have a UK accent, British accent.
Right. And so depending on the particular environment you're in, you should just show you how you're influenced. Hey, people who grow up in China, guess what they speak generally? Chinese. Imagine if you were like, well, it's like, there's not one way everybody learns that. It's like, but no one's even trying to teach it to them. They're just talking. So they're still learning it. That should give you a clue as to what we're talking about. We say everyone learns the same way because you're looking at the teaching methods and the fact that many different teaching methods exist. Therefore, obviously everyone doesn't learn the same way because those methods don't work the same for everybody, but they don't really work for anybody.
Right.
You know, like who actually remembers algebra? Right. But you probably didn't remember all of it before you started tutoring.
True. Yeah.
You had to relearn it, didn't you?
I remembered a lot of it though.
But you didn't remember most of it.
A lot of it.
Physics?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see my point though?
Yeah.
But there's points where it's like, even though you went to school and you studied it, you didn't learn it. Some parts worked, some parts didn't. So the teaching method is the problem in the sense that it's just trying to focus on memory and all that. But everybody learned how to say mama without an expert teacher. So how is it that your children learn to walk and they learn to speak, but you were not an expert teacher? But then you have the expert teacher and most kids can't learn algebra.
Right.
Like, you see, there's like this obvious contradiction and people are not wanting to look at that because like you were saying earlier, Mitch, they're in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, I don't have time to really consider all that. I just got to get my kids through school. And after 18 years of it, I just didn't have time over the last 18 years to really sit down for a moment and consider all of this.
It's like the same thing where they go
fucking years to consider it.
Where they go like, let me make a bunch of money first and then I'll do good. It's like, let me just let my kid be an adult and then I'll start questioning how to raise an effective human.
Yeah. And then afterwards, like, we didn't think about those things then. And now we have so much more time and we can think of those things.
But now it makes sense why people believe in God and heaven, because it's like, you know what? Yeah. I got to have this point that in the back of my mind, at least, is all going to work out. And so even if I never question it, when I get to, oh man, I saw this. Oh, I want to share this with you guys. Okay. I saw this thing on somebody posted on Facebook and I was like, you guys will love this. Okay. This is for all the chat people in here in our group. Okay. Check this out. I don't even know this person, just on my Facebook. The last few years have taught me that when it is our time to leave this world, the material things we invest in are left behind only to be discarded. Memories are important to me. I'm going to start a reunion of friends and family. The idea is to see who reads a post without a picture. If no one reads my post, this will blah, blah, blah. So like put a message saying how you know me or something, right? So they probably didn't write this. They probably just copy pasted it, but they agree with the sentiment, right? But this point, the last few years have taught me that when it is our time to leave this world, the material things we invest in are left behind only to be discarded. Memories are important. So what they're saying is, when they die, what's important to them is their memories, not the material things you left behind that are discarded. But that's so fucking backwards.
Right.
Because your memories are discarded.
And I mean, obviously you don't take anything with you when you die. So it's all really irrelevant from that perspective of what you're taking with you. But the only thing that actually fucking mattered was the physical effect and what you left as your imprint physically in the world as to what you, and some of it may be like you just sat in a fucking trailer your whole life watching reruns on TV and drinking Bud Light, right. Probably until recently. Actually, I saw the other day I was getting some gas and I saw this Mexican dude coming out. Actually, I didn't realize he was Mexican at first. I saw a dude coming out with a big case of Bud Light. And I was like, wow, people are still buying Bud Light. And I saw it was a Mexican dude. I'm like, oh, he probably doesn't even know. And then I was thinking too more about it. Like he's a very clearly like some kind of contractor, day laborer guy, whatever. And like those guys work so like really hard, like in terms of the physical, on their bodies and so forth. And so they just want to fucking get drunk in the end of the day. And I was thinking about that point of like how it's this really, I mean, if you had to work like that hard all the time, like you just constantly want to like just like relieve it by feeling, getting drunk and so forth. And I'm like, that right there just keeps people like stuck.
Yeah. I thought what you were going to say, because I saw this post that somebody had made, a comedian had made, that was like, Bud Light stock has actually gone up. And it's because they did their market research.
and they found out that the only people who drink Bud Lights are homosexuals. So I thought that's what you were gonna say.
Oh no. Homosexuals and Mexicans, apparently.
Homosexuals and Mexicans. Yeah. But yeah, it's what was that point that you were making just before that?
About the memories and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the crazy part about that. It's like, obviously your memories are going to be discarded. No one's going to fucking remember you. Nobody cares to remember you after you die. That lasts for like maybe 5
What
years.
happens to the memories on a computer when you throw away the computer?
It dies.
It's
Those
like
memories
they're
are
just
gone.
on.
They're
just,
important
it's
to
not
me,
going
Cameron.
anywhere.
Yeah.
They're important.
Yeah. They're important to you, right? To you.
But that's it. So, but that's a personal point. I think what happens is people assume memories are supposed to be important, so they never question that point. It's like, oh, it's my memories, because when I die and I can't physically do anything anymore, the only thing I'm going to have is my memories. Okay, but let's play that out for a second. So you're just going to be sitting in a chair, like in a rocking chair. You can't really do anything, and you're just going to be thinking about all your
What
memories.
about other
of all the
people with
things in your
dementia?
life.
Well,
That's why
yeah,
it's so terrifying to people,
with dementia.
because they're like, oh, I won't even have my memories anymore.
Right. So here's the thing, like there's some validity to the material things that you bought are going to be discarded because they don't mean shit to anybody else, right? Like,
But you know that whole story of like the guy on his deathbed and he like wants to take the gold and everything, but he can't take the gold with him, you know, and he realizes when he gets to heaven, he couldn't take the gold with him or whatever,
sure.
his money or possessions. But
Yeah.
it's the same fucking way with memories. It's not like memories are somehow they're like magical and they just like fly off into ether with you. Like
Right.
your grandma's not going to recognize you when you're in heaven. You're not going to recognize her because your memories are stored in your physical body.
Oh boy.
It's like if
Yeah.
you got a new hard drive on your computer, it doesn't remember what's on the other hard drive.
Oh no, Cameron, stop. You're ruining.
No, it's like the
Heaven
cloud. It's like the cloud can access the hardware, you know?
When you see your grandma, what age will she be?
Party. She'll be young again, obviously.
She'll be
So
at her
you're going to be
best
like
version
hanging out
of
with your
herself.
grandma who's like 23, just like you are.
That's right.
And you're going to be like, oh, my grandma. And she's going to be like, look, I'm 23. Come on, you're kind of harshing my vibe here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a grandma anymore. Like, look at all the
killed
other
the vibe.
23.
You're killing the vibe. Yeah.
And like,
no.
is she only going to be allowed to hang out with like other people who died kind of around the same age as her? Like, meaning that they're like the same generation as her?
That's who she's gonna want to
Like,
hang
she
out
can't
with.
hang out
obviously.
with people of her great grandchildren's age, even though like they're all the same in heaven, because she still has to be your grandma. Like, is that how you think reality works?
Yes, Cameron, that's how
Listen-
people think.
listen,
Damn it.
Cameron. Hypostatic union. Okay. Like,
Hypostatic union,
you
3
just
and 1, and 1 is 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 1. But it's also three.
Exactly. God, you with your racist math. Okay, over here. Jeez. But
It's also 23, the age you'll be when you're in heaven.
or maybe 33. Everyone has to be 33
Mm.
because Jesus was 33. Mm,
Yeah, everyone's
Because he was a
33.
Mason.
That's right, because he was a Freemason. You don't know that? That's why he was a carpenter.
He was
Hello?
Freemason.
He freed Mason.
Like Hunter
He was
Biden.
Freemason. He was Freemason with Satan.
He was
In the desert?
Freemason. That cocaine. No,
Ooh.
but it's
Mm.
interesting because like what actually gets left behind when you die is the physical thing. So like if you have a house, that's left behind when you die. If you owned a bunch of businesses and you can leave that to your children, that gets left behind. But also what you
If-
create the world to be gets left behind.
If
When
what
you
you're
die-
getting left, if what you're leaving behind is discarded, that means it was all fucking worthless.
Exactly. That means you participated in buying a bunch of worthless shit.
Yeah, like if they just come to your house and just like, oh, all that goes in the dump. Do you know what I mean?
Useless.
Like the physical things you leave behind, like what do you think happens to like your children and stuff? Like they just like throw them away? Like no, like they're still gonna be here.
That's hilarious.
Do you think Bill Gates is like, when I die, every physical thing I accomplish will just be discarded?
Yeah, all the PCs, everyone's gonna throw out all
Like
their
they're like,
PCs.
hey guys, Bill Gates died. Like turn in your computers. Like, damn it, I was dreading this day.
What's important, to
Guys,
me
guess
is-
what? Steve Jobs is dead. But I still
Oh, you got to
got
throw
an
that thing
iPhone.
out.
Damn it!
You
It
gotta
got
throw that-
discarded.
Fuck. You You know what's important to him? Memories, just memories.
Memories of abandoning his daughter.
That's right, Lisa.
Memories of repainting the factory floor because it was the wrong shade of white.
Right? Like seriously.
He had more of an impact than, I mean, honestly, anybody in the fucking history.
Yeah.
And like the only memories anybody have of him is he was a fucking asshole. And then he died of like some weird fucking fruit disease or something. You know what I mean? Like
it's hilarious. It's hilarious. So okay, you're putting your emphasis, your importance on something that is worthless. You got worthless shit in your house that people are gonna just discard when you die. And guess
Doodads.
what? Yeah, doodads. You got a bunch of doodads, as Rich Dad would call them, right?
doodads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got a bunch of worthless memories because you're placing your importance on things that don't actually fucking matter because you're not considering your actual impact in this world. You're not considering what's best for all.
But you know the memories that do matter?
What?
It's the memories you put into your children.
Ooh.
When you program your children, when you in the first 7 years, you are creating their memories, which is not the things they're going to think about as what they remember. It's going to be what determines how they think, how they behave, how they act, which is going to shape the future. It's not the memories you think about that matters. It's every word, the definition, the emotional and energetic associations you have with it, those physical memories, just like physical data on a hard drive or on a server. That's what determines everything. So that's the memories that matter, not the emotions. It's funny because when people talk about memories, they're not really talking about memories. They just mean feelings.
Yeah.
Because most of what you remember isn't actually how it was anyways. I know. It's
Yeah.
a lot of it is reconstructed. It's not real. Like I remember I was telling the kids this story about remember we were talking about Ninja Turtles and they were asking me about different things, right? And I was telling them this one story about like a scene I remembered where they took the pizza and they flipped it up in the air and they started like chopping it up. And then like it like flies, like the rat comes in the room and then like it flies and hits his head.
Uh-huh.
And then I went and watched it and that's not what happened.
Oh shit.
Not exactly. It was like different than I remembered it. And I'm like, and I wasn't like, oh, Mandela effect. Oh, like no. Who else remembers? He walks in the room, the pizza, but actually they were all sitting at the table. Guys,
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
I'm in a different timeline, guys.
That's it.
But my point is like your memory is a construction. It's not the actual physical data because our memory's been so fucking degraded. You know, so you can't even trust any of it. You always play yourself as the victim or the victor or whatever. Anyways, it's not like a real actual thing. Like you're watching a movie and you're putting emotional content into it. And that's what you value is that. It doesn't matter because really when you look at the sentiment of that post, it's like it doesn't matter the physical things we do. It matters the memories that we create.
Right.
And it's like, okay. Oh, what about like fucking Jeffrey Epstein Island and shit? I bet they have some great memories.
Oh boy.
You know what I mean? But like, I guarantee you, they're like, oh, I remember that time with that, whatever. I'm not going to go there, but they're right. But so is that okay? Because they got their memories.
So it's this point that Jess was making earlier of like, she was saying how, you'll talk to people and they're like, why don't you remember the good things about me? Like Christina and I were talking about like, that sounds like family members, right? Like
just say like what?
like I took you to the amusement park. Okay. but like that's something that parents will say. It's like, why don't you remember the good things about me? It's like, you know why? It's because what you're saying exactly what kids realize, because you always have these thoughts by like, why didn't you just do this when you're growing up and you're seeing how you're growing up and you're seeing how you're ineffective at all these things that you wish you were effective at, and you realize that it came from your upbringing, and then you kind of look at where did it come from, your parents, and you're like, why didn't you just do this? Those are the memories that you have. That's what really colors your memories of your loved ones or your family is like, why couldn't you support this within me, or help me develop this? Why did you have to be this way? Because you're seeing within yourself how you are not capable or inferior in some way. Everyone experiences this, where it's like, I can't do these things. I wish I was this way. I wish that we didn't have this falling out because this would have made this better and all this, but nobody wants to be self-honest about that. And they're like, oh no, my mom did her best, but like, I just, wish she was just a little different or whatever.
Well, they'll either excuse it and be like, I love my mom, she was so great, and they'll just ignore all of it because they have trauma and it's like the Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Or they'll do that. But the thing is, within this community, it's like, okay, we recognize that point. Our parents are to blame, so to speak. But what's the solution?
Yeah.
Obviously, as an adult, you're taking responsibility for your own points, but
Right.
it's changed the fucking system.
Right, exactly.
Because like there was something that happened the other day where like this person like got in Max's face when we were out doing something, and he got like, he was just like, what the fuck is that person's problem? And we were talking about it. And I was like, well, look, I mean, they probably had a fucked up childhood, and that's like how they talk to people. Because it was somebody, because like Matt, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but it was just like a point where somebody was trying to treat him like how you treat children, of like, no, we're an adult. I'm an adult. I'm talking, like, you don't interrupt me, kind of a thing. Right.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, exactly. And it was just like, how do you change that person?
Yeah.
You have to prevent that. I mean, she was like super old too. It's like, you're not going to be able to change that person. And I was explaining to Max, you're going to deal with people in this world who they don't communicate effectively. They're not considering you. They don't see you as an equal because you're a child. You're going to have to be aware of that. And we can get angry because he was angry about it. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, we can get angry about it, but then we have to look at taking responsibility for our reaction to it and learning how to direct a person like that, or direct ourselves within it, And so it was a cool experience, but it's like, why did I bring that up? There was I guess a point we were talking
Because you
about
have to change the system.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Because that's what I was explaining to him. Like I'm sure her childhood was, I mean, I know of the person. It's like, I don't know them like really, really well, but I know like probably what their childhood was like. And it's like really fucked,
Yeah.
And so it doesn't excuse them. I'm not like it justifies how they're behaving or anything. But you could just see like, oh, that's the problem, is like, for anybody who's kind of like, well, I don't see how it can possibly change. Just look for a moment at how many people think you have to put your kids in school because they see a lot of other people doing it. And because it's like in movies, it's promoted. Like, it's really hard to find books for the kids that are really interesting where the children characters in the story aren't going to school.
Right.
Or at least, okay, after school, we're going to do this. And then they're doing all their stuff. It's always, and it's like, from one hand, you think they're brainwashing kids to be in school, but it's also just, that's what kids relate to.
Exactly.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
related to them. Yeah.
And I understand that. And so, but
That's Moloch.
actually, I heard someone say Moloch. Oh, it was Owen Benjamin said it the other day.
Everybody's saying Moloch.
Everyone's saying it now. Yeah, it's interesting.
You shall have no false gods, Cameron.
But my point was like the point of like, if it's not that the way things are is just the inevitable way, it's just that's what everyone's doing. And so if you can present a better way of doing it, and then slowly but surely get more people to do it, then people will start to see like, oh, that's an alternative. It can be done that way.
Yeah.
And there is nothing else like this. It's nothing even close. Like,
Yeah.
go ahead.
There's nothing else, period. Everything else that anyone else is even considering is just an illusion. And I'm saying that sincerely, like really sincerely. It's not this selling point or, like anything where it's, I can see it really clearly of just, what's the point of being here? Is it really just to have your own experience and like that only
You're going to
comes
have your
from-
own experience regardless.
right
Even
Right.
if you support what's best and you do what's best, you're still going to have your own experience,
right
and you're still going to have challenges. And you're still going to have points of enjoyment. It's not going to be fundamentally different. It's just like, who do you choose to be and what do you choose to focus on?
right. And if that's your priority though, you're gonna miss it.
Yeah.
You're missing life. And you're gonna come to the end and you're gonna realize like, fuck, I could have had my own experience and done what's best. I could have enjoyed life and created a world that's actually best for all, and could have been looking back and feel like proud of everything that you created. It's the same point that we were bringing up in the beginning, just like when you're creating, sometimes there are things like in the creation process, like Cam, you created that shooting range, right? I'm sure there are some parts of it, like as you're building it, it's tough, it's challenging. Like, you know, you got
from the very beginning, like the first point of just like, how am I going to get these posts, all 4 of them, in the right spot where they're all square with each other, and like trying to wrap my mind, because I didn't have someone showing me how, trying to wrap my mind around that. I hesitated on starting the project for a month or 2, just because I was like, I don't know how, and I would ask people and I would look it up, and I was just like, and then finally I just went and did it, and we worked it out and everything. But yeah.
But see, now looking back on it, you get to, not even looking back, you get to enjoy your shooting range. Other people get to enjoy the shooting range that you created, right? And everyone gets to come to that and be like, wow, like this is fucking awesome, and have fun, you know? And it's like, the creation process doesn't have to be like if you believe that the creation process, everything should be positive and like, oh yeah, we're building something, oh, it's like you're limiting yourself actually to stopping yourself from creating what you will actually enjoy and be able to look back on it and go, I fucking did this, and look at how amazing it is and how fun it is and all of that. And in the same way, if you are focusing on a life where everything has to be positive, where it's just your experience, where like, oh, you know, I'm just here riding the wave, you're limiting yourself in the same fucking way, where you're actually going to miss out on everything.
Now let's
So I
just
guess-
pause for about 30 seconds and
Yeah.
not say anything.
Moment of silence.
We can wrap it there.
Moment of silence for all the people who are going to live their life and fucking die because they thought their memories were more important than physical reality.
Let's
All
give
right,
a moment
that's
of
moment of
silence for
silence.
the ego. Okay. All right, that's enough. That's all it deserves.
Okay, all right. So we'll see you guys on the next one. What do you want to call this one? Before we
Moment
go?
of moment of silence.
Moment of silence.
I like it. People are going to be like, what?
Ah,
Quiet the whole episode?
3
And
fucking
until the
hours.
very end, and then they realize, oh, wow, that's what it was.
All right, cool. All right,
I
so
like it.
see you guys on the next one.
See you next week, everyone.
We'll be here next week, right? Next week, yeah, next week. All right, see you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.